During a double date, my fiancé whispered loud enough for everyone, "If I ever meet my celebrity crush, I'd drop him on the spot." The table laughed. I just finished my drink. The next morning, she found out who dropped who. The silence at the table was heavy enough to bend the silverware. It was that awful, ringing silence that follows a statement so monumentally stupid, so profoundly disrespectful, that no one knows how to react. 4 of us were sitting there, supposedly on a fun double date at one of the nicest steakhouses in the city. Me and my fiancée, Ruby, and my buddy Liam and his girlfriend of the year, Karen. The conversation had turned to celebrity crushes, the kind of light, meaningless chatter you have over a second bottle of wine. Liam had said something about some actress, and Karen had playfully swatted his arm, standard stuff. Then Ruby decided it was her turn. She leaned forward, making sure she had everyone's attention, and dropped the bomb. "Oh, that's easy," she said, her voice loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. "Chris Hemsworth, and I'm not even joking. If I ever met him, I mean ever, I'd drop him on the spot." She pointed her fork at me for emphasis. "Sorry, babe, trade-up opportunity." Karen burst out laughing, a loud, cackling laugh that made heads turn. "Oh my God, Ruby, you're horrible," she shrieked, egging her on. "But seriously, same. A girl's gotta have standards." I just stared at Ruby. We'd been together 3 years, engaged for 4 months. The wedding was 6 months away, and I had already put down non-refundable deposits on a venue that cost more than my first car. And she was sitting here, in front of another couple, publicly declaring that our entire future was subject to a chance encounter with a movie star. It wasn't a joke. It was a mission statement. It was a window into how she saw me, as a placeholder, as a temporary arrangement until something better came along. Liam didn't laugh. He put his fork down and looked at Karen, his expression unreadable. "You think that's funny?" he asked her. "What? It's a joke, Liam. Lighten up." Karen said, still giggling. "No, it's not," he said, his voice low and firm. He looked at me, a flash of understanding in his eyes. "It's disrespectful. To your partner and to your relationship. What Ruby just said was out of line, and you laughing at it is just as bad." The atmosphere at the table went from awkward to arctic. Ruby's smile vanished, replaced by a defensive glare. Karen looked like she'd been slapped. They both turned on Liam, calling him sensitive and telling him he didn't know how to take a joke. I just sat there, silent, swirling the last of my bourbon in my glass. I didn't defend him. I didn't need to. He was saying everything I was thinking. I finished my drink in one long pull, the burn in my throat a welcome distraction. I placed the glass down on the table with a soft click, and the argument stopped. All 3 of them looked at me. I pulled out my wallet, dropped a few $100 bills on the table to cover the check and a generous tip, and stood up. "I think we're done here," I said, my voice completely flat. I didn't look at Ruby. I looked at Liam. "I'll give you a ride if you need one." The ride home was quiet. Ruby tried to start a fight, tried to get a reaction out of me. She accused me of embarrassing her, of taking Liam's side, of having no sense of humor. I just kept my eyes on the road and gave one-word answers. By the time I pulled up to her apartment building, she still hadn't officially moved into my place, a fact for which I was now profoundly grateful. She was practically vibrating with frustration. "Are you just going to give me the silent treatment all night?" she demanded as I put the car in park. "I'm tired, Ruby. We can talk tomorrow." "There's nothing to talk about. It was a joke. You and Liam are acting like a bunch of babies." "Okay," I said. That one word seemed to infuriate her more than anything else. She stared at me, waiting for more, but I just looked out the windshield. She finally huffed, got out of the car, and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I didn't watch her walk away. I just drove home. My phone buzzed about 20 minutes later. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey, it's Liam. Sorry about tonight. My girlfriend acted like an idiot. Hope you're good, man." I pulled over to the side of the road and typed back. "You have nothing to apologize for. You were the only other sane person at that table. Meet me for a beer tomorrow?" His reply was instant. "Absolutely." Update 1. Liam and I met at a quiet bar the next afternoon. It was one of those old-school places with dark wood and no televisions, a place you go to actually talk. We talked for 3 hours. It was one of the most clarifying conversations of my life. It turned out we were living parallel lives. He was a contractor, a guy who worked with his hands and had built his own successful business. He was dealing with the same issues I was. Karen was constantly pressuring him for a more lavish lifestyle, fancier cars, more expensive vacations, a bigger apartment. She saw him as a walking wallet, a means to an end. The celebrity crush comment wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern of disrespect, of entitlement, of seeing us not as partners, but as stepping stones. We both realized, sitting there over a couple of beers, that we weren't just annoyed. We were done. Completely and totally done. "So what do we do?" he asked. "We don't just break up with them," I said, a plan already forming in my head. "That's too easy. They won't learn anything. They'll just move on to the next guy and pull the same nonsense. They need to understand that their actions have real, tangible consequences." And so we made a pact. We weren't just two guys who had been disrespected. We were a team. Our first move was coordinated and silent. That evening, we both initiated the financial decoupling. I logged into my bank accounts and canceled the supplementary credit card I had given Ruby. I also called my jeweler and had a conversation about the engagement ring, a 2-carat diamond I had paid for in full. Liam's situation was a bit different. He was paying the rent on Karen's upscale apartment. Her lease was up for renewal in 2 weeks. He went to his computer and emailed the property management company, informing them that he would not be co-signing the renewal and that his financial responsibility for the unit would end on the last day of the month. The next 48 hours were quiet. Then, the first wave of panic hit. It started with Ruby. She called me, her voice frantic. "My card was just declined at the spa," she said. "I was trying to book a facial for my bachelorette party." "What's going on?" "I canceled it, Ruby." "You what? Why would you do that? The wedding is in 6 months." "Is it?" I asked. I wasn't sure. I heard it was conditional, pending a chance encounter with Chris Hemsworth. I figured, why keep funding an event that could be called off at any moment? Seems like a bad investment. The silence on the other end of the line was golden. "That was a joke," she finally sputtered. "You can't be serious. All our friends are coming. The venue is booked." "You're right," I said. "The venue is booked and paid for. Don't worry, the party is still on." I hung up before she could ask what I meant. 2 days later, it was Karen's turn. She called Liam in a full-blown meltdown. The management company for her building had slipped a non-renewal notice under her door. She was being told she had to vacate the premises in 2 weeks unless she could qualify for the lease on her own, which, with her part-time job as a boutique sales associate, was impossible. Liam handled it perfectly. He told her that since their relationship was clearly not a serious, long-term commitment, it didn't make sense for him to keep making a serious, long-term financial commitment to her housing. He wished her the best of luck in her apartment search. The girls, of course, immediately teamed up. Our phones were flooded with texts and calls, a mix of furious accusations and tearful pleading. They accused us of being monsters, of coordinating a cruel attack on them. They were right about the coordination part, at least. They tried to rally their friends to launch a smear campaign, but Liam and I got ahead of it. We each sent a simple, factual text to our respective friend groups. "Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know that Ruby, Karen, and I have broken up. At a dinner the other night, she publicly stated that she would dump me on the spot for a celebrity, and I've decided to take her at her word and end things now. I wish her the best." The story was so specific, so absurd, that it was instantly believable. The sympathy they were hoping for never materialized. Instead, they were met with a wall of silence from people who were embarrassed for them. They thought the financial cutoff was the main event. They had no idea it was just the appetizer. The main course was still to come. Update 2. The past month has been a masterclass in watching someone dig their own grave with a silver spoon. After the initial shock of the financial decoupling wore off, Ruby and Karen went into full-on panic mode. Their cushy, subsidized lifestyles were evaporating before their eyes, and they didn't know how to handle it. Ruby's main focus became the wedding. In her mind, the wedding was still happening. It was her leverage. She seemed to think that the sheer momentum of the event, the social pressure, and the non-refundable deposits would force me to crawl back and beg for her forgiveness. She kept calling vendors, confirming details, acting as if nothing was wrong. She even sent out a group text to her bridesmaids to schedule a dress fitting. What she didn't know was that I had been calling the vendors too. But I wasn't canceling. I was making changes. The first hint that something was amiss came from the caterer. Ruby had called to finalize the menu, and the catering manager had asked a strange question. So, for the ice sculpture, did you want the intertwined hearts, or the two separate figures shaking hands? Ruby, confused, had said the hearts, obviously. The manager had just said, "Okay, we'll see what the other party says." The real bomb dropped about 2 weeks before the scheduled date. The formal invitations, which had already been printed with the original wedding details, were supposed to be mailed out. Ruby had been hounding me for them. I told her they were being handled. They were. Liam and I had spent an entire weekend with a graphic designer, creating a new set of invitations. The venue was the same. The date was the same. The time was the same. But the event was very, very different. The invitation read, "You are cordially invited to celebrate a new beginning at the first annual Trade Up Opportunity Gala, hosted by my name and Liam's name." Underneath, in smaller print, it continued, "An evening dedicated to celebrating loyalty, respect, and the good sense to walk away from a bad deal. All proceeds and gifts will be donated to the local Big Brothers Big Sisters chapter." We sent them to every single person on our original guest lists. The fallout was immediate and glorious. Our phones lit up, but this time it was with texts from our friends, who were dying with laughter. People were RSVPing in droves. The story of the Trade Up Gala went viral in our social circle. Ruby and Karen, of course, were apoplectic. They both got their invitations in the mail on the same day. The screaming phone calls were something to behold. They called us every name in the book. They threatened to sue us for humiliation and emotional distress. My response was simple. Sue me for what, Ruby? For throwing a charity event? For changing the purpose of a party that I paid for? You said you'd drop me for a trade-up opportunity. Liam and I decided we felt the same way. This is us. Trading up. Karen had to move out of her apartment on the 1st of the month. Liam was there with a police officer to supervise and make sure she didn't damage anything on her way out. She left in a flood of tears, her designer clothes stuffed into garbage bags, which her parents had to come and pick up in their minivan. The two of them tried to sabotage the gala, of course. They called the venue and tried to cancel the booking, but their names weren't on the contract. They posted on social media, calling us monsters and begging people to boycott the event. It had the opposite effect. It just made more people want to come and see the train wreck. The night of the gala arrived. The venue looked incredible. Liam and I stood at the entrance, greeting our guests. We had never felt more free. About an hour into the party, they showed up. Ruby and Karen, dressed in their most dramatic, attention-seeking outfits. They tried to storm past the entrance, but we were ready for them. We had hired 2 large, unimpressed security guards. "I'm sorry, ladies," one of the guards said, stepping in front of them. "Your names are not on the list." "Not on the list?" Ruby shrieked. "This is my wedding." "No, ma'am," the guard said, checking his clipboard with a theatrical slowness. "This is a private charity event, and you are definitely not on the list." They caused a huge scene, screaming and crying right in the lobby. It was exactly the pathetic, desperate display we had expected. Several of our friends filmed it on their phones. The videos were circulating among the guests within minutes. They were humiliated, and they had done it all to themselves. Eventually, the venue manager threatened to call the police, and they retreated in defeat. The party inside was one of the best nights of my life. Final update. It's been a year since the Trade Up Gala. It's funny how quickly your life can change when you finally cut out the dead weight. The event was a massive success. We raised over $50,000 for the charity, and Liam and I had an incredible time doing it. The story of that night solidified our reputations and completely destroyed theirs. Liam and I are still best friends. In fact, we went into business together. We combined his construction expertise with my business sense and started a real estate development company. We're doing incredibly well. It turns out that 2 guys who are loyal, respectful, and know the value of a good deal make pretty good partners. As for the girls, Their lives have been a slow, steady decline. After the public humiliation of being turned away from the gala, they became social outcasts. No one wanted to be associated with their brand of toxic drama. Ruby had to move back in with her parents. Without my income to support her, her lifestyle of spa days and boutique shopping came to a screeching halt. She tried to sue me, of course. She claimed I owed her half the value of the wedding deposits and the engagement ring. My lawyer shut that down immediately. He presented the court with a signed statement from Liam, detailing her trade-up comment at the dinner. He also pointed out that an engagement ring is a conditional gift, and since she had effectively broken the condition of marriage with her public statement, she was legally required to return it. I had never even asked for it back. The judge dismissed her case and advised her to return my property. The last I heard, she was working a retail job at the mall, the same one she worked at in high school. Karen's fate was similar. After moving back in with her parents, she tried to find another wealthy guy to fund her lifestyle, but her reputation preceded her. She's still single, still working part-time, and from what I've seen on her now private social media, still complaining about how she can't find a man who meets her standards. The best revenge wasn't just one thing. It was the combination of everything. It was the financial cutoff that forced them to face reality. It was the social isolation that came from their own actions. And most of all, it was the gala. We took the event that was supposed to be the pinnacle of their social climbing lives and turned it into a monument to their own failure. We didn't just dump them, we replaced them, publicly and spectacularly, with a better cause and a better friendship. Liam and I are both dating again. This time, we're with women who are our partners in every sense of the word. Women who would never dream of publicly disrespecting us for a cheap laugh. We learned our lesson. And thanks to us, Ruby and Karen learned a lesson too. Sometimes when you're looking for a trade up, you just end up getting traded out.